So I bought a McLaren P1 that was very, very damaged by a flood and a hurricane, and I decided that it would be a great idea to rebuild this, and not only to rebuild this, but to make the fastest McLaren on Earth. Now, I've told this story a billion times. I've said this on my channel, and I've shown the process of what it takes to build a car to go above and beyond its original intent. But I never really thought that this would be, I don't know, a more like an official product, something that could have been made from the McLaren factory. No matter what I did or how much effort I put into this project, it was always going to be something a YouTuber made. You know, it's something some guy made in his garage, and it would never like go to Pebble Beach or the Quail or something like that. It didn't have the prestige because, again, it's me. I'm making the car. That was true until I got an email. I got an email, but I may have DM'd. I may have had some DMs a few hundred times before. So I got in contact with Frank Stephenson. And Frank Stephenson was the original designer of the P1. But not only the P1, he didn't just start there. He designed cars like the Ford Escort Cosworth, the Ferrari F430, the Maserati MC12, the Mini Cooper, BMW X5, all these really, really iconic cars. And not only that, the McLaren MP412C, 650S, 675LT, 720S, all these cars were from this one dude. And I get in touch with him, and the only thing I ever asked him, I DM'd him, by the way, so he didn't just email me out of nowhere. I DM'd him and I asked him, would you be okay with just like me talking to you about my project? Or like, I just want to know what you think about where I'm going with this car, and if there's anything that you would have done on the P1 that didn't get done. It would have been cool to have like some element that was left on the editing room floor. You know, something that McLaren didn't see fit to put on the P1, but I can do that on my car and it'll be sort of kind of ordained by its original designer. And then he said, why don't we just design you a car? I'm gonna talk to the audience right now. I don't know if you know how this works, but when you do YouTube videos, when you make YouTube videos for a living, this stuff doesn't happen. It's insane that a person that has actual pedigree, that like knows his stuff and it, you know, works and makes the most iconic cars in the world goes, hey, I really like what you're doing. Let's make something bespoke. Let's make something crazy. Let's do something for you to achieve your goal. And my goal was to make the fastest McLaren on Earth. So, of course, I said yes. I mean, yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, and my heart is beating out of my chest. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know whether that meant Frank was going to, like, give me a napkin sketch, or maybe he can give me, like, some pointers and tell me, oh, yeah, the original design had fins in it, and then you could put fins in it. Or he was going to do the entire process. I had no idea what that meant. I also didn't know if it was going to be something where I had to pay tens of millions of dollars, because I assumed that these cars were, you know, the design and the aerodynamic aspects of them, like that is expensive. All these hypercars, they're expensive for reasons, because to get where they are in terms of design and fit and finish and performance and everything, it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort. But I said yes anyway, because why not? Frank invited me to meet with him in the UK. And we actually met at a country club, because he said he didn't want to meet at his office because he had some he had some cool projects that couldn't be on camera, which, okay, cool. I can't imagine the kind of stuff that he's working on now, but we met at this country club. And I was the most nervous I'd been in my adult life. I try not to be nervous. I don't really like fangirl, or I'm not starstruck by people usually. Like, I've met with celebrities, I've met with people that are notable and things like that. But I had such a respect for his work and his design. I mean, I truly, like, my McLaren 675 LT, I think that car is designed perfectly. There are no bad lines on that car. And I love driving it. It looks like a brand new car right now, even though it's nearly 10 years old. And that sort of thing carries over to the P1, and the P1 is also, I think, one of the best looking cars ever made. Out of the Holy Trinity, I can say it's easily the best looking. And if you look at the P1 right now, it looks timeless. The 918 looks like it was made 10 years ago. Ferrari, same thing. They're both pretty, they're all pretty cars, but I think the P1 could be made today. And I think that's a quality that is indicative of Frank Steffensen design. Now, I'm not going to just toot his horn, but I was really nervous. So walking into the room with Frank and his team, so Ewan and Harry, can't forget those, I was thinking, I'm going to meet up with this guy and then, again, just napkin sketch and I'll be the happiest camper alive. What I walked into was a very long table, and the table was filled with pictures and models, and like everything there served as inspiration for my project. So you had pictures of the McLaren F1 GTR, you had the long tail, you had like pictures of animals because Frank does this thing called biomimicry. There's a model, like a scale model of a Porsche 917 race car because that went through the air and went super fast on the Mulsanne Straight. And then we sat down and started talking, and number one, like super nice guy. Super nice guy, real car guy, has a real affinity for these cars, and ultimately understands what makes a car look good and what makes it perform well. But what I got instead of a napkin sketch was several fully drawn out sketches from different angles of these like concept cars that if they came out today would be the biggest deal in the world. So we had different concepts of what I want to call the P1 Evo. And this is very quintessentially P1. You can tell that it's the same design, but there's designs with a giant wing like that they call the Delta wing. It's like a super big fixed wing in the back. There's exhaust that come out the sides, like just the craziest stuff ever. Being a designer, Frank also drew them in such a way where they're like dancing off the page. I could not believe that this was happening to me. I've never bought a new car in my life. I don't know what the process is, but I guarantee you, if you buy a new car from Ferrari, you're not going to go and talk to the designer that designed the car to make your own bespoke car. Like that only happens to a handful of people. I was not a person that was going to plonk down, 10 or 20 million dollars for this thing. So also at this point, I don't think Frank knew that I didn't have any money. I was so awestruck by the amount of talent that these guys had. And we started talking and modifying these sketches. And what was cool is that they had a screen right behind me and they could modify in real time the stuff that I asked them to do. So we're like, oh, maybe we can lengthen this and maybe we can make this shorter. So they had all of these things already 3D modeled out. That was absolutely insane. But what they gave me afterwards were 3 distinct models that we sort of agreed on depending on where we want to go. After this whole process, I got 3 renders and we chose one, and the one I chose was basically a P1 with a long tail and a giant fin with the active arrow still functional. So I wanted it to look like a P1, to function like a P1, so I could do all the handling stuff, but also would do top speed and be as slick as it could be, meaning that the aero profile was made smaller, if you go to top speed, because at speed, the aerodynamic profile of a car is really important. So having said that, I didn't actually know how we were going to make this. And I quickly realized that in order to make a bespoke body for a hypercar, that would be, 1, it would take a lot of time, and 2, it would take a lot of money. So I did what I do best, and I emailed a bunch of people, and I DM'd a bunch of people, and I sold them the dream. And I said, hey, we got Frank Steffensen on board, we got these other guys on board, we got these guys on board, and this is what I can bring to the table, and I think this would be a wonderful project to collaborate on. And essentially, I would give my YouTube channel, my whatever exposure I could give to these companies in order to get this done. and we needed to do two things. So with this 3D render that I got from Frank Steffensen Design, we would have to do aerodynamic testing, which means that we would have to do, it's called CFD, so computational fluid dynamics. And what that essentially does is it measures how air moves across the body and what happens to the car at speed. So you don't want to have the car introduce lift, so it would just take off like a plane and crash. You also don't want to have too much downforce because then it'll get slower. So you want to have a good balance between the car moving through the air and then sticking to the ground. And not only that, you want to make sure that the car has adequate cooling because we're going to be pushing a lot of power through it. And then you want to make sure that the car is stable. So you don't want to have any sway side to side. If the car's going 250 miles an hour and then you slam on the brakes and the thing spins out, that's also not good. So first step was computational fluid dynamics, and then it was actually going on to the building of the car. So what I've learned through all of this is that number one, it is way easier to just build a car that's stock. Don't try to beat, hypercars at their own game because it's very, very expensive. But if you have the right platform and if you have the right mindset and if you have the right goals, then really interesting things can happen. And you can connect with people and you can move people and you can inspire people that you never thought possible. Like I never thought that any of this would be possible, but getting this P1 and then enhancing the scope and expanding the scope of this project has been a really big benefit to my life. But it's also now there's a bit of pressure to actually make this car, but I'm glad to say we have some leads. And if you guys would like to see the rest of the story, then subscribe to the channel because I will be just as surprised as the rest of you when we figure out exactly how this is going to go.
For the last 20 years or so, I've been working with Premier Financial Services for my own exotic car needs, but also sending friends and clients when I was a car dealer to Premier Financial Services because their simple lease is truly the most powerful tool in the world of exotic car financing. We love it because we get all the great things about leasing, like low upfronts, better tax treatment for business owners, lower sales taxes, but we also retain all the great things about a traditional finance arrangement, like the ability to accumulate equity, trade in and out whenever you want, and always know where your payoff stands because they give you an amortization table with every single lease. And Premier's been a supporter of VINwiki here for the last 8 years, and we love them for that, but truly because the customer support of the Premier Financial Services team is unmatched. And now that they're backed and wholly owned by First Financial Bank, that gives them even more buying power for their portfolio of the most significant and valuable collector and exotic cars in the world. It's also allowing them to create new and more interesting finance options and programs for their clients and giving them much more buying power, which is what everybody is looking for as they go on the search for their dream car. So check out Premier Financial Services right now at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and know that they'll be the perfect supporter of your journey to own your dream car.